Thank you, Mr. Williams. Good afternoon, all persons present in the briefing center here, as well as those viewing online. Pleasant good afternoon to you. First, I wish to thank Ms. Brown for a very comprehensive report on the reopening of the early childhood centers. I'm certain that the information is going to be spread widely and would generate a number of questions. We'll be happy to respond to you at the end of the briefing today. First of all, well, secondly, I want to make some announcements in relation to the CXC exams and the CAPE exams as well. We are quite aware that on the 29th of July, with the passage of the tropical storm, the tropical cyclone number 9, we had to cancel a number of examinations on that day. Subsequently, we had to make an appeal or write to CXC to ask that the students be allowed to set these examinations, examinations as against waiting until next year, which was actually the option that CXC wanted to put forward. So I'm happy to report that CXC has agreed to reschedule these exams for the 11th and the 12th of August this year. That's next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. All examinations will be offered via e-testing. This is the modality that CXC is actually pushing towards. And so with this opportunity, they have said that one of the conditions under which we can take these examinations is that it would have to be via e-testing. Having been notified of the new dates at the end of the work week yesterday, Friday 7th, we are currently working to schedule the shifts to accommodate students. We are aware that the oral examinations scheduled for August 10th to the 14th will be impacted. And as such, some changes would be required. The oral exams, along with the subject areas cited, will be completed on those days. On Tuesday, the AM, it's English B at 9 and Caribbean History at 1 p.m. The examinations department within the Ministry of Education will apprise the public of the venue for the shift system. Please note that all students would have to report to the various venues 1 hour before the examinations begin. Candidates who are not on the shift system who are not on the first shift would be held in isolation to preserve the integrity of all the examinations. So we're asking members of the public, the students, the candidates in particular, to be aware of this. Allowances will be made for invigilators to be assigned in the holding rooms for students, and candidates would be informed accordingly. I want to express the appreciation of the Ministry of Education to our local registrar, who is acting, Ms. Jacqueline Fleming. This information has been communicated to secondary school principals and heads of other examining bodies. In case of questions or clarification, you may contact Ms. Jacqueline Fleming at 467-1404. I now turn my attention to the proposed plan for the reopening of the primary and secondary sectors of the Ministry of Education. Like the early childhood sector, these sectors were closed in March. A certain amount of work was done with students who were given packets to take home, and some teachers, regrettably not all, were able to engage their children or their students online. School went into an extended closure until the formal closure came on July 10th this year. So as it is, students and teachers are now on the summer vacation. However, within a few days, in just about 2 weeks or so, teachers would be re-engaged with training for teaching in the virtual environment. All teachers would be engaged in this training, and the specific information will be communicated to them via their principals. Teachers of grade 4 and grade 6 would engage in additional training for the piloting of the new curriculum at that level, grades 4 and grade 6. On September 7th and 8th, all teachers would report to their physical buildings, their schools, the brick and mortar buildings, as we say. On the 7th, it's the official opening via virtual ceremony, where the Honorable Minister of Education would address all of the education employees. Those 2 days, 7th and 8th, teachers will be working in their schools to convene their various meetings, staff meetings, department meetings, subject level meetings, orientation of teachers new to their schools, including new teachers to the profession, and such like. Students would begin arriving on Wednesday the 9th of September. At the primary level, all kindergarten, grade 1 and grade 2 students will attend school daily, every day. Kindergarten, grade 1 and 2 students will attend school every day, all day, and it's for the full day, 8:30 to 3:30. Schools that be considered very large, 3 of them in the Basti area and Sandy Point Primary School, will attend on a shift system. Those middle-sized primary schools, some of them may have to adopt a shift system or put in place a shift system based on a formula that we are working with. Currently, we have our project team from the Ministry of Education visiting schools, measuring classrooms to determine the square footage of each of these rooms. And then there's a formula that is online that we can use. We put that information in, and it will tell us how many students are allowed in a particular room based on the square footage of that room. So if a middle-sized school shows up where we have too many students in any one room, then we might have to move to a shift system for that. But definitely we have a number of small schools that would be there every day, full-time. Now this gives rise to some issues. Equity. If you're in a shift system, you might be receiving perhaps 2.5, 3 hours instruction daily. Whereas if your school is there every day, full-time, then you are getting at least 8 hours of instruction. 6 hours of instruction. And so this is one of the matters that we have to discuss and see how we can best work that out. In terms of secondary schools, apart from Basti High School and the Washington Archibald High School, the other 4 government-run secondary schools will be in full attendance. That's what their principals are proposing. Again, we are carrying out the same measures at these schools to measure classrooms to determine the number of students that would be seated, could be accommodated in each of these rooms. So if any of these other secondary schools would appear to be overcrowded after the work has been done, then we would have to say to these schools, then you will have to go on a shift system. But as of now, the Basti High School and the Washington Archibald High School are proposing a shift system. These would have to be further worked out and confirmed later on. During the the first term, we are already declaring that we would have put a ban on all extracurricular activities, except in those cases where the extracurricular activity is organized by the Ministry of Education, or in the case of the independence activities. So during that time, no extra, especially external extracurricular activities will be approved. We want the focus to be completely or mostly on academic, the students having missed so much of the last academic year. There would be no assessment period. You know, sometimes schools have the last week or the last 2 weeks designated as exam period. We are saying to principals that we don't want this to happen during the first term in particular. Instead, continuous assessments will be taking place throughout the school term. And teachers will be encouraged to use their teaching periods, especially in the secondary school, to administer their assessment. During term 2, which is usually dubbed the sports term, as of now, we are saying that there will be no major sporting events. You know, each school having its own sports there, and then inter-primary, inter-secondary, and so on. For now, there are a ban on those until we get closer to the time and we see what the situation is. During term 3, the national assessments and the regional assessments will take place. So the usual test of standards that we had to abort this year, these will be reinstated at the end of term 3 for the upcoming academic year. We are not certain yet as to what dates CXC would use for the examination period, if they would revert to the original dates that usually take place throughout the year, or if they would extend the time, such as August or late July, as in the case of this year. Specific dates are being identified where teachers would be preparing record cards and where record cards would be distributed. All of these would be confirmed and shared with the public. A number of health protocols have been put in place or been discussed. Some of them are quite similar to what was reported from the early childhood. In the case of daily screening, where students, adults, teachers, where they would be checked for their temperature, other symptoms, and so on, this would be recorded. The same information applies if somebody is showing strong symptoms of the COVID-19, they would not be allowed in. If persons develop these symptoms later in the day after they have been admitted to the premises, all schools would have a designated area as a sick bay where these persons would be taken. And of course, persons would have to be dispatched from school premises to seek urgent medical attention. We are hoping, with the assistance of UNICEF, to build a number of hand washing stations in all of our schools, both in St. Kitts and Nevis. This may not happen at the beginning of the school year, but we are putting in place, some schools already have their dispensers in place for the hand sanitization process to take place. The students in kindergarten, grade 1 and grade 2, there is some conversation as to whether these students would be allowed to wear a mask or not. That would have to be confirmed, but certainly the students from grade 4 right up to 5th form would be required to wear a mask while they're at school, in addition to their teachers. We are also working out the busing arrangements as to how many students will be allowed to travel on the bus, the school buses, at any one time. So all of these arrangements are being put in place, are being worked out, and we will continue to share information with the public as we make our final decisions. But as of now, these are essentially all of the information that we wish to share with the public, and we look forward to any questions that may come in at the end of today's briefing. Thank you, Mr. Williams.